welcome everyone. I know we've been saying hello and everything in the chat, which is great. So we're here with Jane, who's going to do a webinar on angry behaviour. I'm sure there's a bit more to the title, but that's the nutshell. I do hope you enjoy. Very rewarding topic for us in our own line of work. So I'll just hand over to you, Jane.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Have I got screen share?
I will sort that with you now.
Thanks. So yeah, it's really excited to be with you for this webinar, because I think that you know, as Ruth and I were saying when we were just chatting there with everyone and getting settled in, this whole thing about angry children has become a thing. It feels like it's gained more notoriety and more commonality than maybe is healthy for it. So we're going to just explore together today this whole thing about, you know, you may be that professional who is being referred the children, the angry child, the angry children. And this is just another way of maybe adding to how you already view them and their behaviour, and just to support you in the work that you're doing. I do feel it has, as I say, become a bit of a thing over the last, well, quite a few years actually, that it's easy to categorize children as angry children or children with anger problems. So let's have a look together. Any questions at all, please do feel free to type them in the chat box, and then at the end we'll have a look together. If there's anything, you know, some of you, I mean, people always very generously do this, but only if you can. You know, if you know of resources or things in your area, then, and something pops in your head, please do feel free to put it in the chat. But yeah, any questions at all, very delighted to take them. Okay, so let us have a look. Here we go. Okay, so I am clearly Jane Evans. I had the immense privilege and joy of working with children, young people, parents, adoptive parents, kinship carers, foster carers for nearly 30 years now. And along with my son, who is my greatest teacher, they have walked me through what I believe we all need to understand about children, childhood, and children's needs. So they've been my teachers. I've often got things that I'll be talking to you about today will have been things that I once upon a time did not realize or did not understand in this way at all. And probably therefore as a practitioner got things wrong, and as a parent and as a foster carer, I've been a foster carer too, got things wrong. So I come at this very much from having learned on the front line, doing jobs like being a childminder, working for the NSPCC in family centres, working in child protective services, working in domestic abuse and violence services, working in schools, working in a child to parent violence organisation as well. So being there, being with the families, being with the children and young people, often in their times of really complex need. And, you know, as I say, fortunate to learn from them by them showing me again and again and again what I was not getting. And then I began studying all the emerging research at the time and findings on the impact of early childhood trauma. I don't know how many years ago, it doesn't really matter in a sense, but maybe about 14 years ago when I was training to be a foster carer. And that really gave me a big nudge in a different direction in terms of how I was then viewing children their behaviors and their needs. So whenever I'm talking about anything, it's always through a trauma sensitive lens. Okay, so some of these may sound very familiar to you when it comes to thinking about children and anger. You may get told that they, they've got anger issues, they're just out of control, and they don't have any self-control. You may get told that, well, they're just a very angry child or angry young person, that maybe they're described as explosive, difficult, manipulative, or all kinds of things that sadly are often said about children and young people, and sometimes even to them. You need to sort yourself out because you have anger issues is not something that any child should be being told at any point by anyone, but invariably they will have been. And also the idea that, they're lacking in self-control, that they actually know exactly what they're doing, that they're using their anger in a very manipulative way, and that, comments are made about, well, it just seems to come out of nowhere. It's this mysterious, mystical thing that occurs, which I think kind of buys into this idea of it being, just a thing all on its own. Anger, being angry, behaving in an angry way. Now, just to be clear, I am talking very, very much about children and young people today. When we become adults, the way in which we display and sometimes use anger, now that can have a much more intentional purpose behind it. So I wouldn't want us to get confused about, oh, so that means an adult who treats me in an angry way, or is always shouting at me, or seems to have anger problems, that they can't help it. This is not what I'm saying about adults. So just to be clear. So thinking about anger in this way of exploring it as just being one of our many emotions can be such a useful thing to do, because when all the focus is on this child being angry, being told, and it's all about their anger, it sort of traps them into an identity, into a way of being seen by other people, but also it will very much become the way in which they perceive themselves. So these are just some of the other emotions that everyone, especially children, will be experiencing very, very often, very quickly. Our emotional states shift super, super quickly all of the time. We are not happy all the time. That's impossible. We're definitely not angry all the time, or any of these other emotions. This is from a brilliant study that was done on how and where we feel and experience emotions in the body. So you can see from these images, anger is felt generally particularly in the upper body, so all around the heart area, very much in the arms and hands, in the head, the face. So you know that look on someone's face when they're angry. It's a very tight, hard look, and there's often a lot of tension in their shoulders, arms, hands, also their legs and their feet. So if you think of this in a child's body, so children who are often in a state of anger, the tension and the pain, actually sometimes physical pain as well as emotional pain, all of that trapped inside a child's body, that's really quite alarming, isn't it, to even think of that, and the burden and the tax that this takes on their immunity, on their mental health, on their physical health. It's huge. So it's I think it's really important that we step into what it feels like for a child to experience, along with other emotions, anger a lot of the time. It's exhausting. So it's, you know, it's not going to be in any way something that they would wish to be in. Now, if we break emotions down, so anger being one of an emotion that we're all probably very, very familiar with hearing about, knowing about, and we start viewing emotions as really, really useful tools that come into play as ways of coordinating our behavior and the movement and the state of our bodies, our thinking and you know, way of showing up in the world, and linked very much to a moment of survival in our daily life, and also showing up in moments of connection and pleasurable interaction. So some emotions are not going to be able to show up in certain situations. So if we are really, really, really scared, then we're unlikely to feel joy and calmness and anything else in that moment, because we're in a survival state in that moment. So if we are feeling very, very relaxed, then you can't feel super relaxed and feel angry at the same time, super contented, super safe, in a lovely, safe connection. In a lovely, safe connection, you cannot feel the emotion of anger. So that should be something to kind of, you know, wake all our interests up. Oh, okay, that emotion and that physical state that comes with it cannot exist if and when a child is feeling calm, is feeling emotionally as well as physically safe and connected to an emotionally, physically safe, compassionate adult. So here's a clue as to, you know, what the children really need and what has been so absent for them in their lives. So animals are great to study when we're trying to understand things like where anger fits into this survival reaction and this safety response that brings us into connection. So animals do a lot of reading each other's energy, sussing out real subtle movements. If you've ever seen two dogs meet like this, they often have a little bit of a standoff. Some go rushing in and, you know, lots of waggy tail and sniffing. Others have a bit of a standoff and there's a sort of, you know, I move slightly to the right, you move slightly to the right, a whole dance that goes on. And what they're really doing is they're just checking out, is it safe for me to connect with this other dog and have some fun and run around and, you know, do whatever, or do I need to quickly go into a state of protection? Now, they're not thinking that, they're just energetically picking up on it all and tuning into the energy of that other dog. So in a state of connection, there'll be this relaxed playfulness. In the case of, you know, two dogs playing, but this can also happen with humans, is that there is a certain amount of high energy to sort of give the energy to the play, but there's this relaxed state of safe connection, which means that the play is fun for both parties. Now, what you might see with some children who you work with is that they really struggle with this. They want desperately to play with the other children or to interact with the other young people, but they cannot attune in a healthy, helpful way to the energy of the others. And they may start off playing, but they are quickly the one that ends up being shouting, being the one that shoves people, being the one that in some way appears to be angry, and then the disconnection happens. And it, you know, it's really sad to watch this going on over and over and over again, particularly, you know, at break time and other times when they are able to socialize. There are some children who they find this dance of safe connection, which can enable playfulness, incredibly hard to do, because their system is much more primed for picking up on anything that feels like any kind of threat. So they spend a lot of their daily lives, not because they want to, but because it's automatic, in a state of protection. So in a state of protection, it's much easier to be flicked into fight mode, into attack mode, and that can be anything. That can be, you know, verbal aggression, it can be physical aggression against another, and this could be verbal or physical aggression against themselves as well as others, emotionally attacking in some way, putting down, using angry energy and angry words, psychologically manipulating in an angry, unpleasant way. And this can be themselves as well as adults or children around them. Or this big protect energy could put them into flee, 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 get away, get away, get away. So the urge to escape from the situation, because that's how they're trying to enable their protection. Again, no thinking involved in this. And sometimes what can happen with regards to anger showing up is that not knowing or not meaning to, an adult gets in the way and tries to block or talk at a child who's in a state of flee, 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 and has this huge energy going on inside of them, and then it erupts into what you know, looks, feels, sounds like anger, because the urge was to just get away and actually not harm anyone, not do anything against anyone else, but without meaning to, the adults have blocked the means of escape. And then there's freeze. So freeze in an angry state can look and feel terrifying for the child, because they're trapped inside with these huge feelings. And it may be that they're in that state actually for a long, long time. And then one tiny thing happens that isn't in any way really related to what's been building up inside of them. And then they burst out of freeze, and it's really messy and uncomfortable for them and everyone else. So if we can start moving ourselves into really perceiving everyone, but particularly children, heavily emphasized, as either being in a state of safe connection, feeling comfortable, feeling okay, or being in a state of protection. And for some children, that means that is going to erupt in some way. And that, as I say, that could be against themselves as much as anyone else. So it's always, I feel, the most helpful question we need to be posing ourselves all the time about any and every child and young person is, well, is it, you know, are they really angry? Because really the worst thing we can do is trap a child, especially a young child, because it will then carry forward with them through their lives, into the belief that they are angry, that they are an angry child. And, you know, this can happen very easily in the first 6 years of life. The brainwave frequency state is at a lower level in children because they're on this ginormous have to learn how to be human learning curve, with information just coming in, being received by their whole system, forming their core beliefs as complete truths. So if they are hearing said around them, about them, or to them that, you know, you need to sort your anger out, you're very angry, you've got anger problems, and, you know, all this kind of thing, it will become their core identity. And, you know, that's something that we all need to be super, super mindful of and super wary of. I've, you know, worked with 4-year-olds before who've told me, oh, it's just because I'm angry and I'm naughty, or I'm angry and I always hurt the other children. And it's because they've heard it. So in terms of how we perceive children's behavior and needs, we need to be super, super careful of our language and our use of language. Now, that's not to say that anger isn't fine to talk about. Of course it is. It's just one of our emotions. It's making it the identity of a child. That's what we need to be super careful about. So we're not categorizing anger or being angry as in any way bad or negative. It's just part of being a human. Last time I looked. It's just knowing that we need to be really careful about how we are phrasing it, because a child's subconscious mind will easily take on board and internalize forever that they are an angry person. And, you know, I don't feel we have the right to do that to any child as professionals, and really not as parents or carers either. So what is happening? What's happening for the children? Who is making the decision that this is an angry child? Is there something else going on that we have been missing a trick here? What are we basing on this definition of this is a child with anger issues, anger management problems, who gets angry a lot? So we're basing it on things that have been handed down to us. I feel that, you know, this is what anger looks like, this is how we define it, this is how we categorize it. Now we just need to sort it out. But I would invite everyone to start being much more curious about what is going on for children, and knowing that there's always a system that all of us go through when we're receiving information, which we're doing all the time, every second of our lives. So we're receiving smells and sights and sounds and tastes and touches. Even when we're asleep, there's still information that's all around us, and information that's coming up from our bodies as well. And this is coming into us, it's going into our whole nervous system, which runs all through our body, all through our brain. And immediately our nervous system's going to react safe, unsafe, safe, unsafe. It's not going to have a conversation about any of it. So, you know, the sight of somebody maybe just behind a child suddenly, and all they're doing, the person behind, is reaching up to scratch their head, but the child concerned, they just catch out of the corner of their eye an arm moving, which in the past their nervous system would have had the experience of an arm moving behind you equals being hit on the head, or something else that felt scary to their nervous system and flick them into a survival reaction. And it can literally be anything. That's how brilliant the nervous system is. It will just pick up a shift in any emotion, any physicality around the child, in the child, and coming towards the child from any part of, you know, around their whole being. So the sensory information comes in, there's a quick safe, unsafe, and then there's always an emotion attached to it. You know, if somebody putting their arm up, being caught out the corner of a child's eye, equals fear because it has resulted in them being pushed or hit or something like that, then immediately they're going to experience fear, or the frustration of being trapped and not being able to escape, or whoever knows. We don't know. That's the thing, we don't know, and they can't tell us. And this, they might on that occasion have managed to force themselves to stay on their seat in the classroom or wherever they are, not jump up, not shout out, but that big rush of fear and adrenaline and cortisol is now trapped inside their nervous system, and they're feeling unsafe. So it starts to be this accumulation of too muchness, overwhelm building up in their system. This time, nothing happened. They didn't act and react. The result was that they had perceived it as, a threat, but somehow when we, you know, I'm sure many of you know these children, that it doesn't happen every single time, or it seems to come out of nowhere when the big disruption happens inside of them and outside of them. But if you think of this going on all day long inside of all of us, but particularly children, information, nervous system, an emotion attached to it, then there may or may not be an action. And then there's the perception of what that was being shoved down inside of them. Now, for some children, they already came into school jam-packed with emotions, unprocessed, unseen, unsoothed, unheard, unheld. They come in every day to your settings or to your therapy space or whatever. And then it can just be that teeniest, weeniest thing, which does not make sense because it's so out of proportion to what has erupted out of them. But again, if we start viewing it as, oh, okay, so it wasn't necessarily anything to do with the very tiny bump they got in the corridor, or the being asked to move from that seat to that seat. That was not really the issue. That was just, you know, that phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back, that they'd been pushing all these emotions down, and it was that one thing. So that helps us step aside from, this is an angry child, this is a child who's always losing it, to, wow, this is a child who spends so much of their life in a state of emotional, sensory overwhelm. So there it is, the very tiny things that then tip them over the edge. And being very clear as well. So this is an image from one of the animations in the Innovating Minds Healing Together program, because there we talk a lot about all the feelings that are inside of our body. And knowing that anger is not an emotion that hangs about on its own. In fact, whatever emotion we feel, and I would, you know, invite you later to have an experiment with this and think of something, you know, that brings you a lovely feeling of happiness and yeah, I was going to say happiness and joy. See, I can't even say one emotion on its own, but, you know, something that really brings you happiness. And then just take a breath and feel into that, and then feel what other feelings are there alongside of happiness. We do not feel one emotion on its own. It always comes with a little one or two, at least, other emotions. So the child's inner experience, when what the outside world can see is anger, is that they will always also be feeling lots and lots of other emotions as well. And of course, when they are the powerful, hot emotions, they have a huge force behind them, and they're very, very uncomfortable for the child. And yeah, they're building up and building up and building up inside of them. Remember the image of anger in the body, how hot and red that is, and how intense and tight and burning that will be feeling inside of their bodies and their brains. So we need to be really comfortably, I feel, in that space of knowing that whenever a child is showing what looks like anger, or some people might choose to describe as anger, that they will be feeling many, many other things as well. The likelihood is, you know, very close companions to anger are frustration, jealousy, fear is a huge companion to anger. And yeah, many of those other, what I would call hard energies, frustration, jealousy, even disappointment and anger can go together as well. So long as we are able to compassionately hold this real curiosity. Now, in the moment when a child has just, I don't know, done something that's scared us or hurt us or whatever, to be compassionately curious is going to be a challenge. but we need to get ourselves there as quickly as we can. They absolutely deserve that from us. They need us to be able to get over ourselves as quickly as we can, not be trying to fix them and, deal with the actual behavior that's just presented, but to move ourselves back into this space of compassionate curiosity so that we can really hold them emotionally. Now, there may be behaviors that we need to talk about later. Of course, that's our role always, wherever we are in children's lives, but it's not an immediate emergency. So long as they are safe, everyone else is safe, they do not need us to start banging on there and then about what's happened and, well, why did you do that? And what were you thinking? And all that upper brain cognitive stuff. This is a child who's overwhelmed with their feelings, probably now is feeling a lot of shame, a lot of isolation, a lot of loneliness, maybe now beating themselves up about what's happened. They really, really have to have us in this space of compassion and curiosity, first and foremost about them. How are they? Are they okay? That has always got to be our starting point, whether it's anger or anything else. And that's not easy because in that moment, what's rushing through their systems once they've slightly come down from the bigger outburst is this complete feeling of not being safe, this complete feeling of being the one who messed up again. I need some connection from somebody to give me a sense that even though I messed up, I still matter to them. I'm not rejected. I'm not outside of the tribe now because of this thing that's happened. They still need to feel connected to somebody. And again, that's really not easy to do when we are working with children who their behavior looks like anger and feels like anger and is causing problems. So if we can work on ourselves to really, really, really be able to access this strong belief that here is a child who was overwhelmed. Here is a child who had a buildup of too many feelings. Here is a child who wasn't feeling balanced and safe on the inside, that they may be all the sounds, all the smells, all the movement, it just got too much for their system, their nervous system, and boom, it went into react. They're in a state of fear, they're feeling very stressed, it may have triggered some trauma in them, and many other things have just occurred for this child. So they therefore, that demands of us that we are compassionate, that we are safe, and we are there to view them in this positive regard. So of course we're not high-fiving them for smashing over tables or whatever, but we get to that bit later. While we're with them, what they really need is just for us to sort ourselves out so that we can just walk ourselves back through. Having a phrase like, when I work with parents a lot, I say it's great to have a phrase in your head that you can just, while you're taking a breath, so long as everyone's safe, be saying to yourself, they are scared, 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 because it brings you much more easily into your heart then, rather than trying to fix what's going on and viewing them in any other way. So this whole journey for these children, this doesn't just start because something terrible happens, like their family breaks up. It doesn't just start because I'm trying to think of some other life event. It started long ago, this way that their system has experienced life as overwhelming, which means it very easily gets flicked into this big fight, flight, freeze mode it began when they were tiny. So their systems know how to do this really, really well. And this presentation and the way it comes out of them, this has become a way of trying to, this is the tragedy of it all, trying to get connection when they are in a state of total fear and lack of safety. They don't intend to hurt anyone in that moment. It's just that their system learnt very early on, for there are so many reasons why babies get so stressed, that their systems easily, quickly learn to go into a state of fear and fight, flight, freeze. And of course, a baby can't bring themselves out of it. A child can't bring themselves out of it. But depending on what has happened to them in the womb, during the birthing process, especially in the first 2 months of their life as well, but we know that that whole early period of development, it's setting the foundation for how active and reactive their survival protect system and their survival safe connect system, how active and reactive and flexible they are. So again, if we can move ourselves into this very heart-centered place of viewing a child who presents as angry as a child who's chronically terrified, then we're cooking on gas. We've got something good going on. So what are the changes that they really, really need if you are the adult in their lives, or you are the adult who's working with them right now? Well, the most important thing they need is for you and your nervous system. So in the adult here, we've got a little bit of it, but in the child, you can see a lot more of it. So their whole system that runs throughout their body, all around their heart, their lungs, all their major organs, all through their limbs, into their brain, their face, their eyes, their ears, their mouth, and everything. It's seeking safe connection from an adult who feels safe. So it doesn't look safe. It's not an intellectual safety. It's when their nervous system is with your nervous system, it can just come down from that high state of fear and alert and terror and reactivity that, came from wherever it came from, because your whole inner body system is much more balanced, much more grounded, which feels like a good, safe holding energy for them. So that's the most important thing, first and foremost, that we can all really, really work on and really focus on. And any of you who've ever worked with me will know that I go on and on and on about this all the time. But if we go back to the dogs in the picture earlier, in the same way, we're all mammals like dogs and cats and cows. And so we also just plug straight into the energy of the other human beings that we are with and we are connected to. And that's happening at a level below our conscious intellectual thinking anyway. So if children, particularly children who are really struggling in this state of overwhelm, can have at least one, preferably all, but at least one adult who, when they have contact with them, the child's nervous system just starts to come back into more balance and feeling safer, then that is an amazing thing. And, as practitioners who work with children, this needs to be our main focus. You can learn all the techniques and all the courses and read all the science you want, and that's great. And I've done all of those things. But when you strip it all back, you will be the best resource and support to a child if you start to focus on really getting to know what happens in you when you get stressed, being able to recognize your emotional states, and regularly committing to lots and lots of calming yourself. This is what these children really, really need more than anything else. They need your consistent, persistent, showing up, come hell or high water, calmness, kindness, safety, and connection, and that it's not conditional. It's not withdrawn because they couldn't do this or didn't comply with that, or, you know, when you have any interaction with them, you are the one who brings this. You bring this positive regard for this other being. Okay, yes, there's been this incident. Yes, you need to support them through it. The thing is that they intellectually know that what they did was not acceptable. So that isn't the bit that we need to labor on about. What they can't do is access the level of calmness and safety in themselves that mean that they can go through life without these big outbursts happening. So having one adult at least who keeps bringing this to them, exploring tiny ways with them of having a few resources themselves that they get help, heavily underlined, to use to start bringing in some calmness inside their body, because if they bring in some calmness inside their body, it will help their brain. This is what they really, really need. It's not complicated, which doesn't mean that it's therefore easy, but it has to be the foundation of any work, any support we're giving to a child who's presenting as angry. They need this real sense from one adult in their life that they are emotionally completely seen, and their sense of mattering and being held in good regard by this adult is not conditional on them making good choices, behaving well, doing this or doing that. They need one adult who sees, oh, so you're a child, you're a young person who at the moment your system easily gets very quickly overwhelmed. So therefore, that's what we focus on. Not that that's good, it's bad, it's anything else, but that's what's happening to your system. And they need an adult who's able to be present with them and not talk at them too much, who's able to be the one who says, okay, it's okay, let's just take a breath. And who moves forward with them, checking that they are okay. Are you okay? Because when the child has had some kind of big angry outburst, it doesn't matter whether they're 6 or 16, they are definitely not okay. They are feeling scared, they're shaky, they're feeling, oh, so many different feelings and embarrassment and all kinds of things. However they might behave, deep down, that's what they're feeling. So they don't need a lot of talking in that moment. They just need a lot of calmness and compassion, and not talking, breathing. You should be doing more breathing than you are talking if you really truly want to support children who are struggling with big feelings and big overwhelm. So that is it in a nutshell. I was going to say a biscuit then. I don't know why I was going to say a biscuit. Yeah, so it really is, if we're going to support children and support them well, it has to start with us. It has to start with us viewing the way they're presenting, their needs, their behaviors, what they're saying, how they're showing up in the world through this lens of, ooh, okay, so something is overwhelming their system, and that's what we need to focus on. How can we strip back life for them so that you know, when they say they're coming into a school, that, you know, we'll always know that the chances are that they're coming in already in a state of overwhelm, and actually this can be the place of emotional safety, physical safety, where they can come down from that state of overwhelm. We can be the safe connection that means that they don't repeatedly experience life as just overwhelming, and then boom, it all goes wrong. Overwhelming, boom, it all goes wrong. And that just becomes the cycle of their life. So it's focusing on having a really clear, simple plan that you create with them. I would suggest this would be a beautiful start about how, so I am focusing on school, but there will be other situations. When you arrive, the person that they feel safest with, or whoever, there might be a few people they feel safe with, will be there in the lobby, and they will just, what would you like them, just to give you a little nod. So already they get that little dose of, I see you and you matter, a bit of safety. And then you put a little plan together. It may be that they just need 5 minutes in a room where there's not too much whatever going on, with this safe, calm person, and that you've got this one little thing that you do together. Just shake it all off, or something like that involves the breath. And that they need a really simple plan, a really simple system that they get the opportunity to just go through every day. It's these little things that make the difference. Sometimes we think, oh, it's all the big stuff, and well, it might do, but starting in these simple ways, not overcomplicating anything, with at least one person who can focus fully on being calmness, being safety, it honestly will make a big difference. If you even think of yourselves, imagine when you arrived into work every morning, there was just somebody there who just very quietly, very gently acknowledged your existence, checked if you were okay, maybe made you a nice cup of tea, didn't talk too much. Would that not be lovely? And if you've had a difficult morning, and you're feeling stressed and all the rest of it, and you're driving into school and you think, God, if I get in there again and that one thing has not been done, or that one thing has been done, I am gonna lose it today. And you come in and there's this calmness and this kindness and this gentleness, the likelihood that your state of overwhelm will come down, and you may just go sweetly into your day. Now, with the children, they're going to need top-ups of this throughout the day, because their little nervous systems, even when they look physically very large, are still very, very unformed. They still get very overwhelmed very often, and depending on what they've lived through, particularly in that early part of their life, getting overwhelmed will just happen boom, 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 boom all the time. So they need this to be ongoing throughout the day. So, if we're serious about supporting children who are struggling with these big emotions, then we need to really commit to this being something that doesn't just happen for a week, but that is embraced throughout the setting. And to be honest, this would help every single child you will ever come across every day of their lives. So I'll leave you with that thought. So if anybody's got any questions, I would be very, very happy, or anything that you think, oh, that's all very well, Jane, but how would it work in this situation? I may not know, because obviously I don't have an answer for everything, although maybe I do, but I'm very happy to take any questions or any curiosities you've got, or any aha moments that you've had. Very happy to do so. I don't know if you've had a chance to look in the chat box, Ruth.
I have, Jane. Yeah, there's someone who was asking if there's a chance of getting the PowerPoints and also a certificate for CPD.
I don't think that normally. I think what happens is, well, I know what happens is that the recording will be available in the hub, so you can go look at it there. The PowerPoints, they don't normally get sent out, no, and I don't believe there's any certificate involved. These are just free webinars for you to come and have some free learning and some time together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, where you logged on or found the link for this webinar, the recording should be there as well.
Yes, it will be put up.
Soon.
Okay, so there's a few questions coming in there. Let me have a look. What are views on post-event support, e.g. restorative justice? Well, Matthew, that's a great question. I suppose I'm just curious, really. I put myself in the shoes of the children, and I feel like if I had been the child who'd done the massive explosive thing, maybe hurt someone else, I don't know how I would feel, and I don't know, this is genuine, about sitting in a room with the child I'd hurt, because my level of shame and guilt and embarrassment, it would have had to have gone down massively for me to not be feeling like the worst, most disgusting person on the planet. And then I have to go and sit and face the person that I did the thing to. I don't know. It just makes me curious. I think as the adults around the children, we would need to be really clear in a very compassionate lens about what is the benefit for anyone in this. What do the children or young people really want? You know, the child that's been hurt, do they really want to have to go through? I don't know. I think it's a very careful piece of work. And, you know, doing it for the sake of it, because it's a thing I would not be a fan of. Yeah. You know, as an adult, I can remember as a child being made to go and say sorry, or made to take back something I'd nicked from the shop or something. And it's terrifying. It's absolutely, and you feel bad enough that you got caught, and now you've got to, oh God, I don't know. It's making me feel a bit sick. So it's something I think as a professional, you need to be quite skilled about ensuring that this is really going to be a benefit from the child who, we're remembering they were in a state of overwhelm, fear, distress, and whatever when they, you know, did whatever they did. I don't know if walking them through this now is the kindest thing. Question mark. Open to other people's views, very much so. I'm not trained in any of those techniques, so but that is honestly what I think. Few grounding strategies in the moment. Yes, it can be, it's always good to just find the simplest thing, Lisa, to be honest. I'm a fan of hand on my heart. Just, I'm putting weight, hand on my heart, weight down in my feet, because what happens for us as adults is mostly we spend a lot of time ourselves in the kind of big energy, you know, fight, flight, tense. So we don't actually have any connection with the lower part of our body, which is where the more balancing, calming energy is. So creating a habit of just every now and again having some contact with your feet. I've just have a habit of putting my hands on my heart. That, you know, that sending of the breath down the body, it sends the signal of I'm safe. But you can do anything, you know, something like, you often see people, don't you, like put their hands back on their head. And again, so now I'm gently rocking. And I'm doing it slowly, but I mean, these things take a millisecond. Literally, they just take a millisecond. Doesn't need to be a big deal. I think in our mind sometimes we construct it as a big thing, but anything. All of these are ways, if your body likes it. Some people's bodies won't like a hand on the chest. Other people's bodies won't like their, I mean, this is, you're doing this to yourself, not never to a child, obviously. Yeah, it's exploring a simple thing that you can do, that's some connection with the body, and then using the breath, and just have fun with it, and you know, have a little experiment. And then when you've got your one thing, I pretty much most of the time do the same thing, but I sometimes do this. But yeah, find your one thing and just make it part of your daily life, and that will be hugely helpful. Rebecca Marsh, social enough use language such as, yes, manipulative, angry child, angry issue. What alternative terms could you with these big emotions? So if I was talking about a child, I would say that they were scared, that they were overwhelmed. Nowadays, you may have heard the term dysregulated, which basically means that their nervous system's got horribly out of balance, and chemically they're all out of balance, and they're dysregulated. They're in a mess. So yeah, I would never ever be describing a child. I mean, to be honest, even an adult, is it useful to say they're an angry adult? They might be behaving in whatever ways, but actually they're a scared adult. They're an adult who, got overwhelmed as well. Does not excuse adult behavior ever, but that is what you're seeing. So I think, yeah, phrases like a child who was overwhelmed, a child who felt scared, a child who was stressed, that's actually, then you're really describing what's going on. It's a bit lazy, isn't it? And I know, and I'm sure I've done it myself in my career, describing children as an angry child doesn't even touch the sides of what's really going on. So, but yeah, it's always, I mean, I don't work in teams anymore with across professions, but when I did, I used to just, they might have been speaking about a child in one way, and I would have been putting in a phrase like, oh, a child who's overwhelmed. Oh yes, a child who was feeling really scared in the moment. Sometimes that's the way that you can gradually bring people around. Great question though. Thank you, Angela. Yeah, everybody needs somebody, don't they, just to breathe with and be kind. And okay, I think that might be all the questions. Just double check. So it says the real time. I don't necessarily think there's an answer to this, just wondering how we can work if part of my role. Oh, I don't understand the question. I don't think, Sarah. Are the pressures on, oh, pressures. Yeah. Yes, I can't imagine, having seen what your workload is. The thing is that it's always the simple. So it's not always a big amount of time. I mean, again, it's easy for me to say I am not a teacher, and I have endless admiration for everyone who works with children, but particularly teaching education staff. The way to address this would be in every school that it's just normal every 20 minutes for everyone to just stop and together, if they want to, take a breath. Much of this would be avoided if the staff and the children and the young people were invited to just take a breath or two. And if we started every day like that, and then we broke up the lessons like that, etc., etc. I mean, I've been saying this for 1,000 years. Then this overwhelm and this building up in the, of emotions, some of it would come down, because we would be grounding their nervous systems and regulating them. And then so often, so many of these things just wouldn't happen. So, there is no magic wand, unfortunately, Sarah. The amount of time you get back from instigating something like this, if anybody ever did a proper study of it, would probably blow our minds. But of course, in the fear-based environment which we have put our educators under, it's very difficult to believe that, okay, just stopping every now and again, taking a breath is actually going to gain us back time and gain us more attentive students. But that's the only way I would know, is that it's to encourage, because in my mind, in a way, there are no these children. There are some children who show the overwhelm more than others, but every child is feeling overwhelmed at some point, and everybody needs down-regulating constantly, consistently, and persistently every day, all day long, including especially us. But there you go. Sorry, that's not a very neat answer. Yeah, I completely agree, Angela. It would be great, wouldn't it, if we had somebody who was doing that for us. I've had to learn to do it for myself. You know, I live on my own, I work on my own. I take it as a very, very serious part of doing the work that I do. So I'm a coach. Most of the time I'm coaching online. I will not turn up and coach anybody if I have not checked my state of overwhelm. I haven't done some grounding stuff. To me, it's just like brushing my teeth or anything else. I am the adult for me, and I take this stuff very seriously because I don't want to do any harm. So it's lovely if you've got someone to lean into, but in my experience, if we start with ourselves, then it spreads outwards, and it's a beautiful thing. Okay. I put my blooming clock in the way. I can't get to the thing. 6 messages. See, I didn't bring my charger over to the laptop. I thought, won't need my charger. I've got a feeling. Okay, so yes, I don't come with magic wands, but I do come with being quite old now and having made multiple mistakes. And as I say, learning from the children, and then looking at the science. If some of you have had the opportunity to come across polyvagal theory or study polyvagal theory, you'll recognize that so much of this just connects in with that. It's focus on the body, and then the brain that sits handily on top of the body can settle a lot more. But you know, I know none of it's easy in this rushing, busy world. But just because it's easy doesn't mean it's not absolutely top of the list essential. Okay, so thank you so much. I know that's our hour up. If any of you want to have a quick sneak inside the Healing Together Hub, if some of you are maybe curious about doing the training, there is going to be, in addition to the the foundational Healing Together program, there's going to be an additional training where you can then use the program with children who are presenting with angry feelings. So when you've done your foundational Healing Together facilitator training, you can then do this extra module, and then you can go and start running the program with children who are presenting with angry feelings. It's exciting, isn't it? So I'll just give you a couple of minutes look around the wonderful hub so you can get an idea of what the Healing Together program offers to you, and that you would get your hands on. Oh, I need to do a share, don't I? When you've done your training. And they can, how do people get the information, Ruth?
For Healing Together, it's on the website. So you can start from Innovating Minds, CIC.com, and then from there there's a tabs which takes you to the Healing Together website, and then you have the training dates and everything available there to show you what's coming up next.
Fabulous. Are we able to pop a link in the
yes, I could do that. I could maybe do that.
Email somebody, maybe Miriam. I don't know if Miriam is still the contact point.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, I'll just quickly show you just one of the sessions. So when you train to be Healing Together practitioner, you then get this program. So you then get a link, you can go in and you can use the program on a one-to-one basis with 11 to 16-year-olds, or a group basis, or you can use it one-to-one with 6 to 11 years or group 6 to 11 years. At the moment, the foundational training means that you can use the program with children who have experienced domestic abuse and violence. But as I say, in the background, at the moment, as we live and breathe, is being created an additional module where you can use the program for children who are presenting with angry feelings. There's also going to be a module for children who are presenting with anxiety. So this is what you will then get access to once you are qualified. So every session comes with a manual that it's all laid out there for you. You don't have to create, invent, think of exercises, do anything. The whole program is here for you. So there's always a settling in exercise. You get told every piece of equipment that you'll need if you want it to do each exercise for every session. So this is a group one. We always have a similar flow to them. So they start in a similar way. We remind them why they're there. We always do a little bit of housekeeping because we don't assume that they've remembered where the toilets are from last week. They may or may not know the room. It might be a different room. We always have a little touch on the feeling safe together plan to help everyone feel safe in the group. And then at the heart of each session, there's always an animation that does the hard work for us, really. It shows us what the particular topic is and walks them through it in the way of a very, very simple but rather clever animation. And then you just get to build on that for the rest of your session. That's kind of like the talking point, is the video. And then we just finish off with anything they want to record and remember from their session. And there's a little ending routine that we do the same thing every time. And then if they want to, they've got a sheet that they can take away with them and share with someone who's supporting them, whether at home or at school. So as I say, every session has the same layout, so that it feels familiar for them. It's easier for everyone. There's a flow to it. You get every resource that you'll need. So if we talk about having feeling faces so that they can just, you know, point towards a feeling they might have, then you can print them off. The blank person, that can be their personal record of how anything they want to take from the session, you can print off a copy. We don't want to make anything hard for you at all. We want it all to be there and for you to just be able to go in and work your magic, really, without it being hard work. And then you can see here, every session has its own animation, which literally they can watch, and it walks them through the whole point of what the program is about, which is giving them this connection, this safe connection with their body and with resources, and this simple understanding of how the brain and body work together, so that they then are more aware of things themselves, you know, rather than oh, I just happen to be like this. Because when they can see, oh, okay, so this happening means that my body does that, which means my brain does that, and this is how I can help it all. This is at the absolute core of the Healing Together program. Okay, so I hope that's helpful to you, and by all means do get in touch. We'd be very happy to walk you through it as an organisation or as individuals.
Thank you so much, Jane, and thank you for everyone that joined. Again, you can find the recording where you click the link to find this training, and have a lovely weekend, and hopefully see you on the next webinar. Take care. Thanks so much, Jen.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.